And what is it? It's to do with the way we use energy, how we produce, how we consume, how we move around, and how we generate waste. There are other aspects, but these are some key aspects of it. Now think of development, think of this line as the developed world and the underdeveloped world. The developed world is trying to move from unsustainable to sustainable. So it is like moving like this. The developed world is all trying to move to a more sustainable future. But what is the underdeveloped world doing? We are trying to imitate here. So we are trying to go here first and then go here. What we need to do is to go from here to here. Okay? When I talk, I don't show this arrow to school children. And when I do it, I said, what shall we do? And they all go like this. You know, all the school children, little girls, people in the villages, even they understand that we have to do this. Now, when the UNEP last year, 2008 had a World Environment Day conference, they called it CO2, carbon, kick the habit. So I was asked by Government of India to popularize this message in India. I said, how can I take it to people who don't have their electricity connection? And I say, kick the habit. They will say, which habit should I kick? So we said that's the different arrow for them, and we called it pick right. We changed the word K to P here, and we said pick right. That is, for these people, they must make the right choice from the beginning. We don't want to do this first and then do this. So we should all, the developed world, Japan will move here, but India must move here. India shouldn't be what Japan or the US is in the 1950s or 60s. We should move to the direction where we are going. And this is the challenge of ESD. The challenge is to move towards this, to stop the imitation which is happening all over the world, and to develop people, develop children, confidence to make new decisions. And how do you do sustainable development? Of course, you can do policy. You can have something legal. We can develop better systems. We can have better technology, uses less energy. We can have financial mechanisms. We can have better policing. But what is the most important is education and communication. All of this can only help. If you don't have this, and the people don't believe in it internally, nothing will happen. And I think ESD is this driver. It is not to say ESD means none of this. ESD is a partner to technology. So if Japan develops better cars, better public transport, that is very good. But you also need people to know why it is better. You need better legal systems. So this is the driver of that. The education itself, therefore, needs to be different. ESD education is different from other education. Why is it different? First of all, it must be based on learning and not just teaching. It has to be lifelong and continuous. It can't come to an end at college. When I was still at college, I think I can't remember, but the calculator, four-function calculator, had just come in the market. Can you imagine? There was no email, no this thing. Even a few years ago, it was not. And we don't know. Yesterday, 2 days ago, Skype has announced that video conferencing is possible for free in Skype. Okay? So 4 years ago, if you wanted to do video conferencing, you had to hire an expensive firm and then do it. It's already become a reality. By the time we come to 2014, technology will have changed. Our conference, the 2014 celebrations, will be with different technology than what we have today. So we have to look at that. Multi-source and access. Information is not coming from one place. Most important, empowering, rather than telling people what to do. Global, yet local specific. The solution for one place is not the same as the solution for somewhere else. Capacity building. Multidisciplinary approach. Already it was mentioned today. It is Professor Suzuki's talk, he showed the diagram of how it is to do with every subject. It is not one separate subject. ESD is not a subject. Sensitive to gender, diversity, and everything else. And participatory. I'm now going to, last 10 minutes, share with you some examples from India about how we look upon this subject of ESD in a very broad way. ESD in the school system is perhaps the most important. In 2003, interesting year, same year ESDJ was formed. In 2003, the Supreme Court of India passed a rule that every school and college in India has to have a compulsory environmental education program. No matter what level you do, they have to have it. They even said that we will put the education minister in jail if you don't do it. It was that strict. Because some states say, oh, you know, they talk. But he said, no, we are very serious. You do it. And it was with the infusion approach, not separate subject. In EE, in science, in social science, in language, in all the activities. We did a campaign last year with 200,000 schools looking at very simple messages. And in India, you must realize that every state virtually has a different language. So we have to work with everything which you see here is done in 15, 20 languages. We have, based on this campaign, now launched a project called Paryavaran Mitra, which is Friends of the Environment. And I will talk about the handprint symbol a little later. But what it meant was that just like you had the footprint, which we saw earlier, one little girl, 10-year-old girl in Hyderabad, India, she said, I'm going to do a handprint. And so we said, what does that mean? So she said, the handprint represents what I can do. Footprint represents how I am treading on the earth, but the handprint is what I can do. And let us do action towards sustainability. This is going to 200,000 schools, and it will be both clubs and whole school. What we find is that you need to do something in the curriculum. And Suzuki-san, we were lucky that they allowed us officially to change the curriculum. So while in our early years, CEE was talking to government from outside, it was now possible to be inside the system and help change it. But there is also the scheme for clubs. The government of India supports any school which wants to develop an eco club gets a grant from government of India. So we have 90,000 schools in India which are under this program, and they get a grant to do activities. And wonderful activities is what they're doing. And ultimately, they are made aware and sensitized, but their finally is involvement in action projects. The children go out from the school to the community. For instance, they understand one village, the children went to the entire village to fix leaking water taps. And they found that so many taps could be fixed by children. In another place, they went and did composting. In some way, they went and created awareness about greening or about electricity saving. So children as a pioneer in that. And what will they do? These are the ones: waste management, energy, the point which, sir, you made from UNESCO, the culture and heritage, biodiversity, wildlife and forest, and water. These are the 5 topics which we are dealing with in the school level just now. Another important part of our program is at higher education. As you perhaps know, the RCE, which was mentioned, out of the 77 RCEs around the globe, 6 are in India. Some are connected with CE, one with Terry, my colleague is here. And through the RCE, the concept that college children need to go out and prepare prepare linkages is extremely important. But we are getting college children to do something else. We are getting them to monitor the environment. Today, through GIS and satellite image, you can see what is happening in your district. You can now get a time series. You can see what your district looked like 5 years ago and what it looks like today. Then the college students look at that and then they go and do the ground truth of that. And we are trying to establish a network which collects every college with a particular area of the country, so that we have a college network of feedback which goes from the college. We are also trying to get colleges to have sustainable campuses. Their own campus should become sustainable, and what are the things they can do towards that movement. Trying to get students to do internships. And one of the things we encourage is, for instance, students from Japan who would like to come to India and be part of a project for 2 months. That is something which is a wonderful activity of encouraging interns. There is a whole movement towards rural development. Now, the rural development thing is where we connect with the villages and we connect with major schemes of government. The government of India has a scheme, for instance, for watershed development. They have something for rural employment. They have things for forestry and greening. So we work with local communities, we work through NGOs, we work with governments, and creating, very importantly, jobs which can be done. There is earning potential in that. For instance, something called vermicomposting or vermi wash, doing fertilizers and things, and then selling it. So can we create environment-based jobs? Another key part of our program is based on disaster management. When you had the earthquake in India, you found that there were many people who connected through the earthquake, and at that time, all their assumptions are shaken. When they want to rebuild with confidence and with security. Now, what they realize is that the disaster on earthquake happens in 1 hour. Or when you have a tsunami, it happens in 1 hour or 2 hours. In the case of climate change and other things, the same disaster happens, or bigger disaster, but happens over 20 years. So you don't see it the same way. It's like if you gain weight, every day, today my weight is no different from yesterday's. But if I see a photograph 10 years ago, I realize that I've gained so much. Okay, so the time frame, human time frame is such that a disaster, like a plane crash, 300 people dying in one plane crash will come front page headlines. But 500 people dying on the street in 6 months will not be the headline. So the problem with some of the developmental challenge is that the human mind sees things in smaller bits. And something which is happening over 2 years, 10 years, 20 years, you can't see it because you are too close. So one of the challenges of ESD is to make people go a little far and see a larger time frame. If you can get school children to say, how do you see a time frame? We get students to go and ask the eldest in that community to say, what was this area like when you were a child? Can you describe it? And can they draw a picture of that? What was it like earlier? What do you think it will be like? But how do you get people in their mind to think long when in fact the world makes you think shorter and shorter today? My 4-year-old granddaughter, she tells me,